Hi folks, today I said I would do something on multiplication, so again I'll do it at different levels and I will put the questions on here for you to do so you don't have to be looking at another sheet as well. So first of all, I will show you two different methods to do multiplication. Now it doesn't matter which of these methods you use whichever method is quicker for you. It's entirely up to you. Now, obviously, you need to know your times tables to do these questions. If you're forgetting your sevens, write them in the back of your book, just so you can flick back to them whenever you need to. Because sometimes, it just needs a bit of a jog of your memory. And when you start practicing them, you'll remember them. So as much as this lesson is going to be doing a few questions, sometimes the practice will just get you back into the habit of stuff. So on the left-hand side, this is grid method. Now, this is the one I prefer. For me, it makes more sense. The first box I'm going to do is this one here. I'm going to do 7 multiplied by 50. Now, to do 7 multiplied by 50, you may know that you can just do 7 times 5 is 35. But because I'm multiplying by 50, that's going to make it 10 times bigger, so it's the 0. And one way to think about it is I've done 7 times 5, 35. How many zeros are there? Put that 0 onto that number. So that's 350. And then in the next box, I've got 7 times 4, 28. And in my final step, all I need to do is take those numbers and add them together, giving me a final answer of 378. Now, if you've not done grid before, part of the problem is drawing the grid. So take your time to get it right. Use a ruler if you've got one, but it breaks it down for you. Now, on the right-hand side is column multiplication. I learned this, when I was at school. I only taught a grid when I was a teacher. So I did do this. And this one's quite easy. It does get harder when the numbers get a bit harder. But on column multiplication, we're going to times this 5 and this 4 by the 7. You always start with this number. And the first thing I'm going to do is the 4 times the 7. That gives me 28. I'm going to write the 8 and I'm going to carry the 2. And it's sometimes that carrying that can get a bit confusing. I've done the 4, so the next one I'm going to do is the 5 times the 7. 5 times 7 is 35, but I've got to remember to add this 2 back on, so that would be 37. And I'm going to write that there. You will have been taught one of these methods. You will be used to one of these methods. The method is up to you. But choose one of these methods and have a go at these questions. Here's the questions to have a go at. Pause the video now. For the first question, I've written the grid for you, in case you need it. Okay, the answers are going to come up now, so if you're not ready for the answers, make sure the video's paused. There's the answers. Pause the video to have a look and make sure you've marked your work. Okay, so the next one is a bit harder. And the reason it's harder is because instead of being double digit times single digit, it's double digit times double digit. And this does make it a little bit harder. Now, if you look at my grid that I've set out, all I need to do is think about each box, one box at a time. 50 times 40. Can you remember the trick I used last time? I can do 5 times 4, which is 20. How many zeros did I ignore? I ignored 1, 2 zeros, so I just need to put them on. It's like timesing by 10 twice. Next one, I need to do 40 multiplied by 6. 4 times 6 is 24. I ignored this 0, so I'm going to put that 0 on. Next one is 2 times 50. We know that's 100. And the final one is 2 times my 6. 12. When you're adding these numbers up, make sure you line them up really carefully. So we've got 2,352. That is the method I recommend. I think it breaks it down for you. Just remember, multiply the numbers, put the zeros on that you've ignored each time you multiply them. You may, though, be more familiar with this next method. So this next method, remember what we said last time? We said we have to start with this number here and we're going to multiply by this. So we're going to start with 6 times 2 is 12. And you see, this is why I've got to carry that 1, and it's quite difficult to work out where to write that 1. You've got to be quite careful because you can't write it there because you're going to need to put another number there. So we've done 6 times 2. What we're going to do now, we're going to keep focusing on this 2. We've done 6 times 2, we're going to go 5 times 2. 5 times 2 is 10, but I've got that 1 that I needed to add on, so that's 11. Now, I've done the 2. That one's done. Now I need to focus on the 4. But the 4 isn't actually a 4. The 4 is a 40. So because I'm multiplying by tens, everything's going to be 10 times as big. So I need to start with this 0. So 6 times 4 is 24. Again, I've got to remember to carry that 2. And it's quite, this is why I prefer grid. I think grid is set out much more clearly. I've done my 6 times 4. Now I need to do my 5 times 4, which is 20. But don't forget I've got this 2 to carry on. 22. And then I need to add these together. Remember, I'm not adding that one. That's already been put in before. And we get the same answer, 2,352. If you weren't sure about that one, I really, really would recommend grid. It sets it out really clearly. I'm going to give you some questions to have a go at. Have a go at these questions. I've drawn the first 2 grids for you if it's the grids that you're struggling with. Have a go at those now. I'm going to put the answers up now, so if you haven't finished them yet, please pause. There's the answers. If you managed to get this far, well done, really, really good. Those last 3 things that we've done, you really need to know how to do them. So if you struggle, Miss will tell me and we'll make sure you get some more practice. Now I'm going to explain to you about multiplying decimals. And you don't really need to know anything else other than multiplication tables. That's all it is. If I have the numbers 0.4 multiplied by 0.2, what I'm actually going to do is the sum 4 times 2. Which is 8. However, we know the answer to 0.4 multiplied by 0.2 is not going to be 8. Have a look. How did I change this sum? To make it go from 0.4 to 4, what I've done is I've multiplied by 10. And to make it go from 0.2 to 2, again, I've multiplied by 10. Because I've done those multiplications and I've changed the sum, I've got to undo them to go back to the answer. So I will take this 8, I will divide it by 10, then I will divide it by 10 again. And what I'm assuming is that you understand that you can divide by 10 and multiply by 10. So if you're struggling with that, you need to go away and practice that on Hegarty. So I'm going to do 8 divided by 10, which is 0.8. And then I'm going to divide it by 10 again, which is going to be 0.08. And that is my answer. Let's have a look at another one. 0.3 multiplied by 7. Okay, so we're going to change this number. But do you know what? We don't need to change this one. I can do 3 times 7. 3 times 7 is 21. So let's look at what we changed. We didn't change this number. Nothing changed. We did change this one, though. This one was times by 10. So I need to undo that. And undoing a multiplication by 10 means I have to divide by 10. 21 divided by 10 is 2.1. And the way I've set this out is how I would like you to set it out. Think really carefully about what you're doing. You change the sum, do the sum, work out what changed, and undo that change. Remember, multiplication and division, they are opposites. So if I want to undo a multiplication, I'm going to divide. Okay? Here's the questions I want you to try. Be really careful, but what you are aiming for is make everything into a whole number, then multiply, then undo any changes that you did. I'm going to show you the answers now, so pause and do these. Pause now if you don't want to see the answers yet. And there's the answers. If you got these right, really, really impressed. And if you didn't, don't worry about it. Have a careful think about where you might have gone wrong. Well done over these last couple of lessons. And the only way they really extend this is they just make the numbers that you're multiplying harder. So for instance, in this one, all I'm going to do is change them to 54 and 31. So I have multiplied that by 10 and multiplied that by 10. I'm going to do 54 multiplied by 31. Well, I'm going to do that with whatever method I want to use. You can use your column, you can use your grid, whichever method suits you. So I know the answer to 54 multiplied by 31 is 1,674. But remember, that's not going to be the answer to my actual question. We need to undo these multiplications that we did to make the calculation easier for us to do. Now, some of you might know that when you divide by 10 and divide by 10 again, that's the same as dividing by 100. So you can just say 1,674 divided by 100. It gets you the same answer as if you divide by 10 and then divide by 10 again. And that's going to give me the answer of 16.74. So it's exactly the same if your numbers are slightly more difficult. Now here's an ever so slightly harder one. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this one by 100. So that gives me my 31. Now, interestingly, what I actually want to do is I want to multiply by 72. You could still multiply by 720. And this one sometimes it catches people out. So it's quite an interesting one. So I'm going to do this sum. I don't want to put a 0 in my grid. It doesn't matter. It makes nothing. So I'll do this one and then I'll show you what happens. So I did that calculation. I got 2,232. Now, one thing I didn't write in. What have I actually done here? Actually, what I've done here, I've divided by 10. So I have changed this multiplication by multiplying by 100 for this first number and dividing by 10 for this second number. So I need to undo those things. So I'm going to divide this answer by 100 and then I'm going to multiply it by 10. I divide the answer by 100 to undo this one and I'm multiplying by 10 to undo this one. And those of you that are really good at multiplying and dividing by 10, you might realise that if I do this, if I divide by 100 and then multiply by 10, well, all I'm actually doing is dividing by 10. I'll say that again. If I divide by 100, so the decimal would move to there, and then I multiply by 10, so it would move back to there, well, that's the same as just dividing by 10. So have a careful think when you're doing these questions. So it would be 223.2. When you're doing these questions, you've got to be really careful with all these things. How have you changed the multiplication? However you have changed the multiplication, you must undo that change and be really, really careful. Holding all of this in your head is quite complicated, so write down anything you need to write down. Okay, here's some questions to try. Just remember, change the sum to make it easier for yourself. Do that calculation, then change the answer back so that it's the answer to the original sum. Pause the video now and have a go. I'm just about to bring up the answers, so if you haven't finished the questions, please pause now and have a go. The answers are about to appear. Here's the answers. Have a look, check your working. If your decimal's in the wrong position, but you've got the numbers right, You're making mistakes when you're multiplying and dividing by 10. If your decimal's in the right position, but your numbers are wrong, then you're just making mistakes on your multiplication. So if you have made any mistakes, go back and try and find the mistake you've made. Well done, folks.